You don't know what loneliness feels like until you hear the silence after your own child's voice disappears from your life. It's a particular kind of quiet, one that echoes in the hollow places where laughter and phone calls and Sunday dinners used to live. After tomorrow, you're not part of this family anymore. Those were the exact words my son's fiancée whispered to me the night before their wedding. I stayed home the next day, my heart sitting like shattered glass in my chest. But by noon, the elegant cathedral wedding had completely fallen apart, and the reason why left everyone who thought they knew us absolutely stunned. The night before my son's wedding, I truly believed I was about to witness the happiest chapter of his life. After all, I had raised him alone for 28 years. I knew the weight of every sacrifice. The nursing shifts I'd picked up on Christmas, the college textbooks I'd bought instead of a winter coat, the way I'd learned to silence my own loneliness so he'd never feel the absence of the father who walked out when he was 8. To me, his wedding wasn't just a union, it was a testament, proof that all the love I'd poured into one small boy had grown a good man. That evening, I went to the rehearsal dinner at the Grandview Hotel. I carried a gift I'd spent months making, a leather-bound journal filled with letters to his future wife. Not advice, just stories. Stories of the little boy who collected tadpoles in jars, of the teenager who wept over his first failed calculus test, of the man who called me every Tuesday without fail. I wanted her to know the heart of the person she was marrying. Chloe met me at the ballroom doors. She was breathtaking, as always, hair like spun gold, a dress that cost more than my first car, a smile calibrated for photographs. But her eyes, that night, were chips of sea ice. "Claire," she said, my name a flat note on her tongue. She didn't call me Mrs. Bennet anymore. She hadn't for a year. "For you and Liam," I said, holding out the journal. "I thought you might want to know some of his stories, the ones he's too modest to tell." She didn't take it. Instead, she stepped closer, the scent of her perfume, something expensive and floral, filling the space between us. She leaned in, her lips brushing my ear as if sharing a secret. "After tomorrow," she whispered, her voice sweet and venomous, "you're not part of this family anymore." The air left my lungs. I blinked, certain I'd misheard the gentle rustle of her breath. "I'm sorry?" She leaned back, that perfect smile still in place for anyone watching from across the room. "You heard me, Claire. You've served your purpose. You raised him. Tomorrow, he becomes my husband, my family. Your excess. Don't humiliate yourself by trying to hold on." I stood frozen, the journal a dead weight in my hands. My throat closed around a lifetime of words, arguments, defenses, pleas. None came. She patted my arm, a condescending little tap. "Go home. Sleep in. Tomorrow will be the best day of our lives, and we simply don't need you there to dim the spotlight." I don't remember the drive back to my small, quiet house on Elm Street. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, the journal open on my lap. My hand shook so badly the handwritten words blurred into a blue river of wasted love. Every story was a piece of my soul I'd offered her, and she'd used it as a platform to tell me I was obsolete. Tears fell then, hot and shameful, but beneath the grief, something colder stirred. A slow, tectonic anger. I spoke to the dark room. If I'm not part of this family after tomorrow, then tomorrow I write. My body moved through the old motions, grinding coffee beans, pressing the cornflower blue dress I'd bought for this day, the color of Liam's eyes he'd once told me. But at 8 a.m., I hung the dress back in the closet. I placed the journal in a drawer and closed it. My phone began to vibrate on the kitchen counter. Texts lit up the screen. Liam, 8:15 a.m. Mom, you on your way? The pre-ceremony photos are starting. Liam, 8:45 a.m. Mom, Chloe said you weren't feeling well last night. Everything okay? Liam, 9:30 a.m. Please call me. This isn't like you. Each message was a hook in my heart. Every instinct, every cell that had mothered him screamed to go, to be there, to smile and bear it. But the memory of Chloe's icy whisper was a wall I couldn't climb. At 10 a.m., my sister Margot pounded on my door. She stood on my porch in her peach bridesmaid gown, her face flushed with panic. Claire, what in God's name are you doing? The ceremony is an hour. Liam is sick with worry.
I'm not going, Margot. Her mouth fell open. Have you lost your mind? This is your son's wedding. The dam broke then. The words I'd swallowed the night before came tumbling out, raw and ragged. She told me I wasn't part of the family anymore. She told me not to come. She called me excess. Margot's anger dissolved into stunned horror. She sank onto my sofa. She said that? To your face? To my face. I wrapped my arms around myself. If I go, I legitimize her. I become the pathetic mother clinging to the son who chose a woman who despises me. I won't do it. Margot was silent for a long moment. If you don't go, Claire, they'll blame you. The narrative will be that you abandoned him. I looked out the window at the empty street. Let them. I've been the villain in her story for years. Today, I choose not to play the part. I watched the clock tick toward 11 a.m., the ceremony time. I pictured the cathedral, the flowers, the expectant hush. I imagined Liam at the altar, turning to look for me in the front row, finding an empty seat. The guilt was a physical pain. But at 11:47 a.m., my phone rang. It was Margot, her voice a trembling whisper. Claire, it's over. The wedding, it's not happening. My heart seized. What? Is Liam hurt? No, it's Chloe. Liam, he called it off, right there, in front of everyone. The world tilted. What? Why? Margot's next words were low, charged with a kind of awed disbelief. He found out, Claire. He found out everything. And you not being there, it was the thing that made him see. I had thought my absence would be the end of my story. I never dreamed it would be the beginning of the truth. The truth, when it finally broke through, didn't arrive with a whisper. It crashed into the cathedral like a tidal wave. What my sister relayed to me in frantic, piecemeal phone calls over the next hour painted a scene of pure, jaw-dropping drama. At 11:05 a.m., just as the organist began the processional, Liam had been pacing in the vestry, his eyes constantly darting to the door, waiting for me. His best man and childhood friend, Marcus, had been trying to calm him. She's just stuck in traffic, man. She'll be here. She's not coming, Liam had said, his voice hollow with a dawning realization. And I think I know why. That's when Marcus, pale and sweating, had thrust his own phone into Liam's hands. On the screen was a series of time-stamped photos sent anonymously to Marcus an hour before. Photos of Chloe in a hotel bar 2 nights ago. Her body was curled intimately around a man in a tailored suit, her wealthy investor boss, Jonathan, the one she'd called her professional cornerstone. The images were not ambiguous. But it wasn't just the infidelity. As Liam stood there, the world dissolving, a sobbing, champagne-anxious maid of honor had let another secret slip to a groomsman. The prenuptial agreement Chloe's family had insisted upon wasn't a shield for their assets. It was a clever, complex funnel for his. A significant portion of his future earnings as a corporate lawyer were to be directed into trusts controlled by her father, a real estate developer named Robert, whose empire was, as the investigator we later hired discovered, a beautifully constructed house of cards. Their wedding wasn't a love story. It was a hostile takeover. And my refusal to show up, my visible, glaring absence, had been the first crack in their perfectly crafted production. It had unsettled Liam, made him question, made him receptive to the ugly truth when it finally landed in his hands. By 11:20 a.m., Liam had stormed into the bridal suite. Chloe, a vision in ivory and chilled composure, had turned with a radiant smile. It died on her lips when she saw his face. "What the hell is this, Chloe?" He held up Marcus's phone. Her mask had slipped for a microsecond before the practiced calm snapped back. "Liam, darling, it's a misunderstanding. That was a work dinner. He was upset about a deal." "Don't," Liam had said, his voice trembling with a fury I'd never heard him in. "And while we're at it, let's talk about Clause 7B of the prenup, the one about income allocation, the one your father's lawyer drafted." The color had drained from her face. In that moment, he'd seen it all. The calculation, the deception, the sheer transactional greed. The man she loved was not the man in front of her. He was the man on his future business cards.
He'd walked back down the aisle alone, to a sea of confused, rustling guests. He'd taken the microphone from the stunned priest. His voice had echoed in the vaulted silence. "This wedding is canceled. I've been betrayed in ways I am only beginning to understand. Please, go home." The fallout was instant and vicious. Chloe's family, the picture of affluent grace, transformed into cornered animals. The narrative war began before the last guest's car left the parking lot. By that evening, social media was a battleground. Chloe posted a single, artfully tragic photo of herself still in her dress, a single tear tracing her cheek. The caption, "When love isn't enough, when outside forces poison what's pure." The comments were a flood of support for her and sly, pointed questions about the overbearing mother who was notably absent. I was being tried and convicted in the court of public opinion, and I hadn't uttered a word. Liam came to me that night. He looked years older, his eyes shadowed with a pain that went beyond heartbreak. It was the pain of dismantling your own reality. He said, "Mom, I'm so sorry for everything, for not seeing it, for letting her speak to you that way." I pulled him into a hug, feeling the tremors he tried to suppress. "You see it now, that's all that matters." But the storm was just gathering. 2 days later, a formal letter arrived from the law firm of Hartwell and Price, representing Robert, Chloe's father. It threatened a lawsuit against me for intentional interference with prospective economic advantage and defamation. The claims were absurd, but the intent was clear: intimidation. They wanted to bury me in legal fees and public shame until I disappeared. Liam was incensed. "They're bluffing. This is harassment." "But it's effective harassment," I said, the cold dread settling in my stomach. I was a retired nurse. My savings were my security. A legal battle, even a frivolous one, could ruin me. It was my new ally, Margot's friend Susan, a retired paralegal with a mind like a steel trap and a fury for injustice, who became our strategist. She said over tea in my kitchen, "They're using perception as a weapon. They're painting Claire as the villain to distract from their own crimes. We fight back with facts, not feelings, Facts. With Susan's guidance, we began to dig. We weren't looking for more salacious affairs. We were following the money. Quietly, discreetly, she called in favors. Within a week, we had a dossier. Robert's empire was a labyrinth of shell companies and staggering debt. The prenup was indeed a salvage operation. Liam wasn't a son-in-law, he was a life raft. I presented the folder to Liam one evening. He paged through the financial disclosures, the liens, the records of collapsed ventures. His face hardened with each page. They were going to use me, he said quietly. The betrayal now economic, cold, and somehow even more violating. They still are, I said. The lawsuit threat is a tactic. They need you to back down, to come back to the table, to save face. They need you compliant. Liam looked at me, a new resolve crystallizing in his gaze. What do we do? Susan answered for me. We stop playing defense. We take this story, the real story, and we give it to someone they can't intimidate. The following week, Chloe's parents hosted a reconciliation luncheon at the Lakeside Country Club. They invited Liam, pressuring him to attend alone to heal the rift. Liam refused to go without me. We walked into the opulent dining room together. Every head turned. Robert stood, a picture of patrician disappointment. Liam, Claire, how courageous of you to come. Chloe sat beside him, her beauty now sharp and brittle. She didn't look at Liam. She stared a hole through me. We're here to listen, Liam said, his voice steady. Good. Then let's discuss how we move forward from this tragedy. The gossip is damaging to both families. A joint statement, perhaps a story of mutual, respectful parting. The legal matters, he waved a hand, can be forgotten. It was a bribe. Drop the truth, play nice, and they'd call off their legal dogs. I placed Susan's dossier on the crisp white tablecloth. Before we discuss stories, Robert, perhaps you can explain these. The bankruptcy filings in Delaware, the liens on the Crestview properties, the structure of the Bridgeton Trust, the designated recipient of Liam's voluntary contributions per the prenup. The room went preternaturally quiet. Robert's affable mask shattered. Where did you get those? He hissed. The truth has a way of surfacing. I hold his gaze. You weren't looking for a son-in-law. You were looking for a debtor. My son is not a line of credit. Chloe shot to her feet, her chair shrieking. You vindictive old woman. You've poisoned him. You've always been jealous of what we had. Liam finally spoke, his voice low and final. What we had, Chloe, was a lie you built around the man you wanted me to become. My mother didn't poison anything. You did. The moment you told her she wasn't family, you showed me exactly what kind of family you were trying to build. A cold one, a calculating one. I want no part of it. We left them there, amidst the ruins of their performance. As we reached the parking lot, I felt no triumph, only a deep, weary sorrow. But as I drove away, Chloe's last furious scream echoed in my mind. You'll regret this. She was wrong. I had lived a lifetime of quiet regret, for chances not taken, for words not spoken. This was not regret. This was the end of silence. And I knew, with a mother's ferocious certainty, that the final battle wouldn't be fought in whispered threats or country club lunches. It would be fought in the light for everyone to see. In the weeks after the country club, the silence from Chloe's family was more threatening than their noise. The lawsuit papers never arrived. The social media posts stopped. It was the calm of a predator circling, waiting for a moment of weakness. Liam threw himself into his new associate position at a prestigious law firm, the shadow of the derailed wedding hardening into a fierce professional focus. He was quieter, sadder, but there was a new steel in his spine. He'd look at me sometimes, over coffee in my kitchen, and say, "How did you stand it for so long, Mom? The way she talked to you." "I stood it for you," I'd answer simply. "I thought it was the price of your happiness." "It was the cost of my blindness," he'd reply, his voice thick. We were healing, but the public story was still Chloe's. The heartbroken bride, jilted at the altar narrative had taken root. I was the spectral offstage villain. Then Robert made his final, fatal mistake. He gave an interview to a glossy society magazine, a piece about family, fortitude, and moving forward. In it, he painted a tragic picture. A young love destroyed by outside interference, a mother unable to cut the cord, a son manipulated into a devastating choice. He spoke of forgiveness and the high road, all while deftly burying the knife with my name on the handle. Susan called me the day the magazine hit newsstands. "That's it," she said, her voice crackling with purpose. "He's put it in print. He's publicly defamed you. Now we fight fire with truth." With Liam's blessing and Susan's meticulous coordination, we gave our entire dossier, the financial records, the prenup analysis, the timeline of deception, to a respected investigative journalist at the Metropolitan Chronicle, a woman known for unraveling corporate fraud. We didn't want a gossip piece. We wanted an exposé. It published on a Sunday morning. The headline was a masterclass in understated devastation. The ties that bind, behind a society wedding's collapse, a trail of debt and deception. It laid out Robert's crumbling financial empire with forensic detail. It explained the predatory clauses of the prenup in plain, shocking language. It mentioned the credible evidence of infidelity provided to the groom, and, with devastating fairness, it quoted my single, simple statement: "All I ever wanted was my son's genuine happiness." I now understand that for some, happiness is a commodity to be purchased with someone else's future. The fallout was immediate and absolute. The social media tide turned with brutal speed. Chloe's tearful photo was now memed with captions about crocodile tears. Robert was besieged by business reporters. The country club, we heard, was suddenly less welcoming. But the true reckoning came in a form I never anticipated: the law. The article triggered a regulatory review of Robert's business practices. It also provided a roadmap for Liam. With the support of his firm, he filed a civil suit against Robert and Chloe for fraud, intentional misrepresentation, and abuse of the legal process through their threatening, baseless lawsuit against me. It wasn't about the money. It was about a permanent, public record of their actions. The day they were served, Chloe finally came to my door. Not the polished society princess, but a frantic, pale woman. Her father was in the car, she said, on the verge of a total collapse. The negative press had killed a crucial deal. Creditors were circling. "Please," she begged, tears, real ones, I think, streaming down her face. "Call Liam. Make him stop. We'll retract everything. We'll say whatever you want. Just make it stop." I stood in my doorway, the woman who had called me excess, now crumbling on my welcome mat. I felt no vengeance, only a profound, exhausted pity. "Chloe," I said, my voice quiet, "you don't understand. This was never about stopping you. It was about starting me. I spent 28 years defining myself as Liam's mother. You tried to take that from me, and in doing so, you made me remember that I am also Claire.
And Claire does not negotiate with people who tried to sell her son's future. She stared at me, not comprehending. In her world, everything was a transaction. She couldn't fathom a force that wasn't. The lawsuit will proceed, not for revenge, but for the truth to be entered into the court record forever, so no one can ever rewrite the story again. I closed the door softly. I didn't watch her leave. The legal process was slow, but its outcome was certain. Robert, to avoid a scorching public trial, settled. The terms were confidential, but they included a substantial court-enforced donation to a charity supporting single parents pursuing education, my stipulation. Most importantly, it included a legally binding retraction of all public statements about me and Liam and a permanent injunction against them contacting either of us. The day the settlement was finalized, Liam and I went to the coast. We walked along a windy, empty beach, the crash of the waves drowning out the world. He stopped, looking out at the vast gray horizon. He said, "I feel like I'm waking up from a long, confusing dream." I said, "You are, and the world looks different in the morning light." He turned to me and said, "I'm sorry it took me so long to see you." I smiled, the salt air stinging my eyes, and I said, "You saw me. You just had to remember how."
That was 2 years ago. The cornflower blue dress still hangs in my closet. I look at it sometimes, not with pain, but as a relic from another life. I never did wear it to a wedding, but I wore it last month to a gallery opening. A local artist, a friend I made in a painting class I finally had the courage to join, was exhibiting her work. Liam is thriving. He found love again with a sharp-witted history teacher named Anna, who brings me bizarre historical facts and terrible, wonderful homemade soup. She asks about my life, my stories. She and Liam bought a house not 10 minutes from Elm Street. He proposed to her in my garden, under the old magnolia tree. Sometimes, when we're all together for dinner, laughing over a burned casserole or debating some obscure point of law, I'll catch a moment of pure, quiet joy. It doesn't come from the absence of past pain, but from the solid, warm presence of what we built in its place. Chloe and her family moved out of state. I hear snippets through the relentless grapevine of our town that they never quite recovered their standing. I feel no pleasure in it, only the hope that somewhere she is learning that a life built on sand cannot stand. As for me, I am Claire Bennett. I am a mother, yes, and that title is my deepest pride. But I am also a student, a friend, a gardener of unruly roses, a woman who finally learned that the most powerful word in the English language is not family, but no. And the silence in my house on Elm Street is no longer the sound of loneliness. It is the sound of peace, earned, deep, and entirely my own.